right, check, check. It is 6:31, Tuesday, October 8th, 2024. At this time, I'd like to call our city council meeting to order. And we will start with Pledge of Allegiance, and then invocation will be given by 5th Ward Council Member Shalonda Hunt. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone. I would like to start this meeting with a prayer. It says, Father, we begin this meeting by acknowledging that all productivity and success come from you. You are the provider of our abilities and opportunities. We cannot do anything without your help. We pray for clear minds, efficient communication, and effective problem solving. We ask for your presence in this meeting as we strive to be productive and efficient in our discussions. Help us to stay focused and on task. Give us creative ideas and solutions that will bring about positive results. In your name, amen.
Amen. Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. If you will proceed with the roll call, please.
Mayor Mahoney.
Present.
Councilmember Robinson.
Present.
Vice Mayor Dancy.
Present.
Councilmember Gunn. Councilmember Wood.
Present.
Councilmember Hunt.
Present.
Councilmember Foregrave.
Present.
All right, thank you very much. That brings us down to adoption of the agenda. We'll be looking for a motion and support.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any discussion? Seeing or hearing none, the clerk will tally and display the vote. All right, we have an agenda. Brings us down to item number 5, presentations and proclamations. And item A, presentation on the MLK Reimagined Project. City Manager.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. We're going to have the presentation kicked off by John Willis tonight, and I'll follow up.
Good evening, everyone. We are presenting to you a presentation that we have on neighborhood impact. This is a presentation on how decisions made 100 years ago affect our community today. Just so you get a better understanding of how we came up with what we were doing, what the research, the purpose of it was. We're doing some research for a violence speaker for our Reduce the Violence Summit. We came across a criminologist by the name of Thomas Abt, one of the leading criminologists in our country, and this is what he said.
Takes a lifetime of trauma to create a shooter and decades of a disinvestment to create a hot spot. So these people and places don't move around easily.
What he said was, it takes a lifetime of trauma to create a shooter and decades of disinvestment to create a hot spot. Having been a member of ALPAC and working with our Jackson Police Department, I learned that a hot spot was a spot or a place in a city, usually in an urban setting, that can be a street, it can be an intersection, it can just be a house, where things are happening, and say the police officers and the special units, they come in and they arrest all of the bad guys one week. But the following week, there's a whole new group of guys doing the same thing. This has become a hot spot. So looking at our shooting map of 2019, as you can kind of see, there were shootings all across the city, but there was a concentrated area of the city in which most of the shootings took place. That is the southeast part of the city. So I began to think about the question, the statement that Mr. Apted made. If it takes decades of disinvestment to create a hotspot, I wanted to know, is that something that happened in Jackson? If it happened in Jackson, why and how did it happen? Where did Jackson disinvest? Did anybody know about it? Did anybody know what would happen when this disinvestment took place? So in order to kind of find out, knowing the South Side was this place of disinvestment, I needed a place to start, to look back. As the director of the Martin Luther King Community Center for 20 years, across the street, there was a lady whose name was Juanita Selby. She would come across the King Center and she would tell me she had food for me. I don't know why she thought I was attracted to food, but that's what she would say when she came over there. But she would offer me these soulful plates, and I would come across the street. In exchange for me eating, she would tell me the stories about what the South Side used to be, all the businesses that used to be on the South Side, until something took place called urban renewal. As we move along, I'll show you where she lived and some of the stories that she told me. But I want to go back to before urban renewal. When I asked around about urban renewal to a lot of people knew that it took place, but they didn't really know what it did. So I needed to find out. So as a starting point, I know she said it happened in the early 60s. So I did some research, and I came upon a map of Francis Street, which is now MLK, in 1960. In 1960, there were over 60 businesses on Francis Street between Franklin and South Street. 7 restaurants, 6 gas stations, 5 grocery stores, and 4 doctors or dentist offices in this community. For comparison, so you'll better understand, today there are a total of 16 open businesses on that street. So I needed to find out what took place, what happened that changed this community. Going back again to what she had told me about the 60s, I needed to find out about urban renewal. I learned that between 1949 and 1974, the U.S. government created this program called Urban Renewal, which was seizing and demolishing large swaths of property for the purpose of modernizing and improving aging infrastructure. In cities all across the country, the consequences of this urban renewal included the destruction of historical structures and the displacement of low-income families. In fact, urban renewal became so detrimental that the Journal of Urban Health and the New York Academy of Medicine lets us know that it was termed Negro removal. The short-term consequences were dire, including the loss of money, loss of social organization, and psychological trauma. Long-term consequences flow from the social paralysis of dispossession, and most important, a collapse of political action. So I wanted to find out what urban renewal project took place in Jackson. There were 33 urban renewal projects in the state of Michigan in 16 cities, 4 local Jackson projects. But one of those projects, and only one, was the Jackson Residential Reuse Projects. These are the projects that came in literally destroyed properties. If you'll notice on the little chart to your left, to the left of the screen, Jackson was one of the cities in Michigan that had organized support and opposition to what was taking place. So I found out that somebody did know something about it, and there was some protests. Remember I told you I'd show you where Mrs. Allen lived, Mrs. Selby lived here. This is her house at the corner of Stevens and Adrian Street. Today my friend Tim Pryor lives there, still a very nice, very beautiful home. But she'd tell me how across the street here in these houses were the Norris's house, were the White's house. We all know Mr. Jock White, one of our most prominent citizens here in the city. There were also the Bicey families. There were several families that lived in several of these homes. She would tell me how her 2 sons would run down Stevens Street, down the dirt road, and they'd go to Mrs. Odie Trice's house. Mrs. Odie Trice is now 100 years old. one of the oldest singers in the city of Jackson. She would run down here. Next door to Mrs. Trice was the church, and they would steal from the apple trees and the pear trees, and she would chase them off with brooms, and then they'd go across the street and get on the cherry trees. This whole little area in the back was called Fruit Land, where you see all the trees. A lot of fruit trees in this area. I've also learned today from talking to someone that visited my office that in the back, on some of these streets that we no longer have, was the house of Mrs. Anna Woodridge. If you look up her name, she's better known as Abby Lincoln, the most prominent actor from the city of Jackson, lived over here. The little corner you see right here, our mayor's relative, Reverend Gillespie, actually had a tent where he would hold church services right here on this corner. But she would tell me about all of the good things that took place here. And for a reference point, this is where King Center sits now, doing urban renewal. Mrs. Allen said, John, the tennis courts and basketball courts at King Center, they're always going to flood when we have a lot of rain. I didn't understand why. She said because the church that used to be there, when they tore this church down, they never took the basement out the way we do now. So every year when it rains, to this day, you can still see the floods that take place on those buildings. So taking her information, I began to go back and study and see what happened. I learned that in 1958, downtown Jackson, they began making plans for what they call urban renewal. The plans were to come in and demolish 500 homes, 501 homes in the city, and create low-income housing and do some different things with them. No one knew about the plans at that time, and they began to talk about it, and they planned in 1960 the first public hearing. At the first public hearing, according to the newspaper, over 750 people, according to the paper, mostly Negroes, showed up to protest what was happening. Attorney William Goler, who was one of 5 black attorneys at the time, he said, you guys need to understand, if you do this plan, if you take away these homes, and you do what you say you're going to do, you are creating a Negro ghetto for 30 years from now. This is what he told them in 1960. Mr. Charles Grubb, who lived at Bridge Street, said, will you shove this down our throats and tell us that you're doing this to modernize and improve it? This is what he said. Now, Bridge Street, for those of you that live in Jackson, you'll know as you're riding down Morrell Street, and you come just across MLK Drive, which is Francis Street then, there's a huge curve there. It curves over into it and goes out to meet on Cooper Street. Well, originally Morrell Street ended at Orchard Place, and Bridge Street started on what was Belden Road. It came up, but in order to create a shortcut, according to our newspapers, to create a shortcut for the people that worked in the factories, they tore out about 6 houses and just joined the 2 streets so that I was shortcut doing urban renewal to get to work. So there was a lot of protests. The protest was kind of shocking for the people that was there. In fact, one of the county commissioners at that time, city commissioners, I'm sorry, made a statement. What he said was, at least one said he had been led to believe that practically everyone in the project area was enthusiastically in favor of the program. He found out quickly that that wasn't true. For 5 years, the community protested what was happening. They protested not only because they were forcing people to sell their homes that didn't want to sell their homes, but they are also restricting where they can move to. At this time, we had what were called real estate requirements, laws in face that restricted the areas that they could move to. Ones like this. This is an actual covenant. The said lands or building thereon should never be rented, leased, or sold, transferred, or conveyed to, nor shall the same be occupied exclusively by person or persons other than of the Caucasian race. So not only were they forced to sell their homes, they were being told where they had to move to and where they could live, where they couldn't live. A good example at the corner of 401 High Street, which is now sits at High and Cooper, was Mr. Homer Humphrey. Homer Humphrey was a bricklayer. He had purchased his home, added on to it in brick building, and purchased the lot next door where he had built a patio where people would come have barbecues. They came to Homer at that time. The maximum they were supposed to give properties was $6,000. Because he owned the extra lot, they offered him $7,500. He turned it down. Him and 5 other people, one including the uncle of our own Tony Dungy. Tony had a business on Wilkins Street that was a restaurant and a barbershop that they forced him to close and sell. They went to court. And Mr. Homer Humphrey, the jury literally came out to his house, visited, and the court ended up awarding him $14,000 for his property. The question to Mr. Humphrey, are you happy now? You got his answer? No, because I don't want to sell my property. And he was forced to sell his home. This continued on for about 5 years. What started out as a $1.78 million project soon grew to a $5 million plan. They added another 40-plus homes and another 25 businesses to their plan for a total of 541 homes that were destroyed during the protests. So I began to wonder, because they said they did this to modernize and improve. And if you've ever been to a house on the south side, you'll understand some of the decor, some of the wood, the extravagant design and wood that are in these homes, wooden floors, all types of details that were put together. How did these homes become dilapidated? And I began to research and find out exactly how the south side, how did it really become the south side? I learned about residential security maps. If you don't know what a residential security map is, let me explain to you. In 1933, our President Franklin Roosevelt ushered in a series of New Deal programs. They call them the acronym programs because there were so many different acronyms. Well, the Federal Housing Administration, which still ensures tenders or loans tendered by banks today, they created the Homeowners Loan Corporation. This Homeowners Loan Corporation, they went out to appraise properties in cities all across the country. They created what they considered risk maps for all cities with populations over 40,000, of which Jackson was at that time. 239 cities and a lot of their suburban municipalities became what is known as red-line cities. And this is how that worked. If you were in an A area, a green area, these were considered the hot spots of that time, which meant this is where you want to loan your money. This is where you want to loan the maximum amount of money from a bank. Keep in mind, these programs are created to generate wealth across the country, coming out of our depression here. That's why they were created. So if you were in the green area, that's where they said your money should be lent. If you were in the blue, that was still desirable, not quite as good as the A, but this is a good place to lend your money. Now, the C areas, definitely declining. They were characterized by obsolescence and infiltration of a lower grade population. Now, they didn't want you to guess who that population was, and I'm going to show you in their words who they made reference to. But that's what the C areas were. If you were in a red area, hazardous, characterized by detrimental influences in a pronounced degree, undesirable population, or an infiltration of it. They recommended, lenders refuse to make loans in these areas, or at best, only on a conservative basis. Let's look at the map and see how Jackson scored. If you'll take a close look at the map here, you'll see the actual redlining map of Jackson. You'll recognize some of the areas. But if you would, please pay close attention to the area that's red and even the faded portion up right here, because you're going to see that shape again. Now, the green areas, remember these are the top areas. This is our Essex Heights community in Jackson. Still one of our top areas. The blue areas, this is the Queen areas. The yellow area, which is, they said, is definitely declining. Remember, it said that it just started to receive undesirable populations. Well, if you look really close, you'll see on some streets, half yellow and half red. Why do you think that is? They didn't want you to guess. They were very clear about what they were doing. Let's look at the appraiser's notes to the actual map of Jackson. The A area, which is, he says, the preferred section of the city. Practically all of the growth and construction of the better type home has been concentrated here in the past. I want you to pay close attention to the last two words that they wrote for the A areas. 100% American. Well, we're in the United States, we're in a state, we're in a city. So what did that mean when they said 100% American? Now, if you look at the B area, they start out with a very unique sentence. This area is almost exclusively occupied by the native-born white-collar class. I'm just reading to you what was written. Why is this important? I'll show you why. There are lasting effects on redlining that still exist in communities today. In our own city, segregation. If you'll notice, the shape of the redlined 1935 map in Jackson compared to the 2020 census tract map of Jackson by population, where almost 50 to 100% of people of color in the city reside. These segregations still exist. Wealth, the number one method of accumulating wealth in our country for families that make less than $200,000 is home ownership. Home ownership. Homeowners are wealthier than renters at every income level. In fact, at the lowest income level for families that make less than $26,000, there is a $100,000 difference in the net worth. The net worth of a renter that makes under $26,000 is $1,500, while a homeowner in the same bracket net worth is average of $102,000. So wealth is another way that redlining has affected communities today. Let's take, for example, census tracts from 1967, census tracts. Census Tract 11 is the only community in the city of Jackson that was affected by redlining and urban renewal. Census Tract 13 affected by redlining as well. Let's look at the difference in the home ownership. In 1967, it was 67% in Tract 11. Today, 24% home ownership, 76% renter occupied. And where it used to be 87%, it's down to 72% in the one that was only affected by redlining alone. In fact, if you look at this map here, you'll see, if you notice the homes in purple, this is where renters live. Those in the greenish blue, this is where homeowners live in the city of Jackson. You may not know it, but looking at me, I told you about the foods and things that she would feed me. What I didn't tell you is the kind of music that I like, and I'm kind of a hip-hop head. Right here, I like to throw in a little Jay-Z rhyme, so you guys just let me bust a little rhyme off for you real quick. Back-to-back double plat, I did what others won't. Men lie, women lie, but numbers don't. Let's look at the numbers. 546 houses demolished at an average value of $6,000 a house. 41 businesses taken away at an average value of $25,000 each, for a total loss of $4.3 million in equity to the Southside community. But that's in 1960 dollars. In today's dollars, it's a loss of $42 million, $42.4 million in equity. That wasn't the worst. The worst part is the life outcomes that have been affected. Remember that shape I told you to keep in mind. Here we see the shape again when it talks about childhood outcomes in adult life affected by where you grow. If you don't believe this, go to opportunityatlas.org and just type in the zip code where you grew up at, and they give you your expected life outcomes. opportunity.atlas.org. Some of the life outcomes that are affected by just living in these communities are your household income by the age 35, the incarceration rate, teenage birth rates, individual income, the fraction of people married by age 35, employment rate, high school graduation rate, college graduation rate, all affected by your zip code. Remember I told you, and a lot of people ask me when I'm doing my presentation, Mr. Willis, why are you just talking about the South Side? I'm talking about a lot of different parts of town, a lot of different parts of people as well. But in this particular instance, this is a community that was affected. I said, why are you just talking about black people? It's not me just talking about black people. These are the statistics. If you go to Google and you type in renewing inequality, it will take you to the dsl.richmond.edu page that will give you the facts about what happened to urban renewal. According to the site, in the late 1960s, an estimated 278 families have been displaced by urban renewal projects in Jackson, 90% of which were families of color. Of 278 families displaced, 250 were families of color. If you look in the same site, Renewing Inequality, where there's a map that shows you where almost 100% of people of color lived in the area where urban renewal took place. And remember I told you when they said undesirable populations, I don't want for you to just guess and wonder who they're talking about. They wanted you to be clear on who they were talking about. This is an actual appraiser's sheet. Undesirables, aliens, and Negroes. So people ask, why do you talk about this? What is the purpose? This is not to make people angry. This is not to make people feel guilty. This is so we better understand what's happening and we start to review our policies, review and revise or eliminate any policies that are exclusionary. Compare our best practices to local policies. Compare best practices to local policies that cause disparities. Apply sticking care philosophies appropriately. Sticking care philosophies, here's what we mean. In the past, we've had a lot of people complain, let's say about community development. This is happening, this is happening. Well, community development has done a lot to offer carriage now. There's 100 homes carriage out there. There's our new Fix 36 program that are carriage out there that are inviting you in to receive what you need to receive. Our practices. We need to build more inclusive partnerships, develop participatory platforms that include others at the table, co-designing and co-creating workshops in the community. For those of you that don't know, on October 16th and 17th, the City of Jackson is holding listening sessions, one at Jackson High School on the 16th, one at MLK Community Center on the 17th, to get people in. Intentional reinvestment. We have to be deliberate in what we try to do to assist communities that have been affected. I had a question when I made my presentation one time with a group of women voters. They said, but Mr. Willis, weren't these federal programs? Understand this, these were locally implemented, federally funded programs. Locally implemented, federal funded programs. What does our commitment look like? It's great to talk. It's great to talk about DEI. It's great to hear people that feel that they're opposed to DEI. They just simply don't understand what we're dealing with. It's very simple. Diversity, simply any difference that makes a difference. Equity simply means something that fits for everybody. If I walk into this room with 100 shirts for 100 people, one size fits all. Guess what? John Willis can't fit one of those shirts. It's better if I walk into a room with a shirt in everybody's size. That's what we're trying to do. Inclusion is simply bringing other people to the table. We have to continue our private and public partnerships and incentives to make change. Jackson's come a long way. One of the things that a writer wrote for the city of Jackson in 1963 when he was here for a study, his last column he wrote, we sent a reporter to Jackson, Mississippi, they sent a reporter here. The last column that the gentleman, Mr. Jerry DeLauder, wrote in 1963 was, there are no signs, but the same spirit exists, as it did in Mississippi. So we've come a long way. We still have a long way to go. That's our presentation. I'll move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, John. I don't need that. I just want
Oh, clicker. Did you take it over to your seat, John?
No. Do you and Lisa move to the clicker after I give?
Yes, it's up there in front of the DS. You gotta turn it on.
Thank you very much. All right. Well, on to the second part of the presentation, and I think it's a couple things that I was reminded from John's presentation. I don't know if we'll look at a massive demolition program here in the city again, like the way we have. Fool me once. Okay, fool me twice. Dang it, you got me again. Never again. Not going to tear down that many homes. You think about the 500 back in the day and what we did these last 10 years. We're paying for it. we have some bad facts, and John went over a bunch of those bad facts. It's our history. We can't run from it. All we can do is learn from it and be better. And to John's last slide, we have to make some intentional efforts to right the wrongs. And one way we can do that is through the MLK Reimagine project that I'll talk to you guys about right now. So the total project is a major infrastructure project from effectively Morrell to South Street. It includes full reconstruction of the road and then all new water and sewer mains. We received a grant called the RAISE grant that will pay for about 85% of the street reconstruction. All the water and sewer work will be paid for by water and sewer funds, and we're not here to talk about that tonight. Those are just a foregone conclusion. Water and sewer funds will pay for that work. What we're talking about is the street work. So the project dates back, the street dates back to 1872. It's a main trolley route on Michigan Avenue, from Michigan Avenue to Vandercook Lake in the early 1900s. There is still some trolley track buried underneath there. The roadway as it sits right now dates back to 1914. It received its last major work in 95. As I said before, it goes from Morrell to South. You can see the depiction there on the map. But what we really want to talk about is the funding. We received a grant, federal grant, to pay for the majority of the street work. And I probably should have let off this before I talked any numbers. Any numbers talked about today for cost estimates, percentages, are all subject to change. I do not have a crystal ball. I do not know exactly how things are going to cost down to the penny, but I can tell you with the work of city staff, we have we put some pretty good thought into these financial numbers as far as cost of the project and participation levels. So yes, the details may change, but we're pretty much on target. So that means the city must come up with about 15% of the project. And there's no one way that we as a city have fund projects. It's never been one way or this way. It's been a mishmash of a whole bunch of stuff. In the past, some streets have been assessed and some streets haven't. And is the rhyme or reason for that clear? No, it's the decisions made by the governing body at the time that what they think are the best interest of the city of Jackson. So when we started talking about this project, we thought about ways that we could help this area out deliberately, thinking about what our city fathers did back in the 60s with urban renewal. And it's not lost on me. And one of the last things John said, that this was a federally funded, locally managed project and disinvestment. And I thought, well, this is going to look bad. Here I am getting up in front of everybody to talk about, hey, the government's here to help again with a federally funded, locally managed project. Intent is to go a lot different than the other one. So the idea that I'd like you guys to consider tonight, because we do have to come up with the 15% of the project, usually means assessments. So what I'd like you guys to consider is having the city cover the first $22,500 of every parcel's assessment, up to that part. There are 142 parcels in the project area. If we went on this plan, where we paid up to $22,500, all but 7 parcels would have a proposed assessment of 0. The highest assessment, and I apologize to Deb Cohen, this is a part of like the numbers are fluid and changing. I didn't update this part. The highest assessment would come in right around $100,000, and the lowest assessment that would actually be paid, someone would have to pay it, would be $775. 95% of all parcel owners, including all residents and churches, would pay nothing. And to make it clear, every parcel, all 142, would benefit from the 22.5 discount. This doesn't leave anybody out. It just means that there's some commercial properties down there who have a high taxable value. Makes sense. They're in business, that they wouldn't have everything taken down to 0. But you can see there, the highest assessment would be right around that $100,000 mark. Again, not again, but as we know, assessments can be paid over time. So we have the means to do this thanks to the American Rescue Plan, the bipartisan infrastructure law, and other additional resources from the state and federal level. We've saved enough money in our general fund for City Council to consider supporting something like this that would minimize the impact of special assessments to the folks on MLK. So this is MLK reimagined because of the disinvestment, but it's also reimagining kind of how we think about funding and doing what we can when it comes to street funding and not always relying on assessments. We can make nuanced decisions. We can make decisions that differ from predecessors. We can make decisions based on the circumstances at the time, and those are always different. And it's reimagined on a couple levels. So as I'm putting this together and I'm coming up with this idea, obviously sitting at that seat up on the city council dais and watching assessments come before us, and some get passed and some don't, it's clear like nobody likes assessments. We're always going to need them though. Until we can figure out a plan that is likely a millage where everybody's paying something, regardless if you're getting your street done or not, we're likely always going to have assessments. And I stepped back and I thought about, well, geez, if we're going to spend this money on this street, wouldn't we have to do it all the time? And I'm not an attorney, but I do know this isn't necessarily precedent setting. As I've said at least 3 times before, that city councils get to make the decision based on the facts at that time and based on, what they want to see happen for the city. So for me, in order to consider this precedent setting, the exact same project with the exact same circumstances, historical disinvestment, current funding opportunities, et cetera, would have to exist in the future. That would make it precedent. If you can say the same thing doesn't get what we're doing here, that's a precedent. If it's not a precedent. It's just you're choosing to do a different thing. So I wanted to put that out there. And if you really wanted to get in the weeds of precedents, you can always ask Matt for how he feels about it legally. But from my standpoint, this is what I think the city should be considering. As I said before, we already have a mixed history with assessments. We're doing some, we're not doing others. And I'm viewing this as a one-time funding contribution. This is not like, sorry to use this as an example, but it's a very, very timely example. This is not like acquiring a big old building and putting a third rec center up, where the money just isn't in that upfront cost where we buy something, a big old building, but like keeping it going. Like using one-time money on one-time things like this project is an appropriate use of money for that. Funds utilized to offset this project are not likely to be around in the future. If we're going to do another pandemic and we're going to have some weird economic times, maybe we'll get some of the same reactions from the federal government through federal funding. But the last pandemic was 100 years ago, so maybe they'll schedule one in another 100 years. So what I'd like you guys to do tonight is consider a proposal to allocate up to $22,500 per parcel for parcels included in the assessment roll for the Martin Luther King Reimagined project, and set a public hearing date at a time to be determined by you guys to approve the assessment roll and have a public hearing on it. And I think that based on John's presentation, I just lost my train of thought. Based on John's presentation and the timing that we have tonight with the accumulation of some of our funds, the prudent decisions you guys have made as city council, we have these funds. And just to make it clear, the estimated assessment roll would be about $1.2 million. This gets us to covering about $980,000 of that assessment roll. So just a little bit to make up by the 7 parcel owners that are out there left. Any questions on my presentation or John's presentation?
Council, what questions do we have?
Jonathan, can you just explain, it says up to 22,500. What would determine someone being eligible for the full 22,500 and someone not?
So I worded it like that because many times, say if someone has like a $10,000 assessment. So we'll definitely cover that, but I don't want anyone thinking or having a misunderstanding like they're going to get cut a check for the difference of the 12.5. So that's how it would work. So that's why it's like that.
Thank you.
It would cost a lot more than the $800,000 to $900,000 if we did it like that.
Yeah, so I guess my question is, so are we going to have a public hearing at the next council? Or are you asking for us to make a decision tonight on the,
Well, so just a second, I went too fast. Can you go to the last slide? So what I'm asking you guys tonight is approve this project plan, because we're at an inflection point. If we were to do a typical assessment roll, that wouldn't come to you guys until March of 2025. It'll be a minute, but what I wanted to do is help that side of town in this project get comfortable with what's going on. So we've been very deliberate and very methodical with this. So what I'm asking you guys tonight is to consider this project proposal and then, yes, set a public hearing. You always need to have a public hearing on an assessment roll. But it would be nice to have those assessments and those assessment letters go out with 135 parcels having a 0 on their form. That's what I'm asking you tonight. Freddie, did that answer your question?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
if I may, I have a question. Jonathan, you mentioned that we'll likely always need assessments. For what?
For streets?
And how often do we get to streets now with assessments?
How often do we get to streets now?
We get about a mile done of our 150 every year.
Yeah, I know
Okay.
where you're going to. Not very often. Probably 2 generations beyond me is, every third or fourth generation is going to have, their street done. So if you live in a house for 4 generations, you'll have it done once.
Okay.
I appreciate and I'm very excited about this opportunity for the south side of town. So this plan, once if it's approved tonight, will be set.
It'll
for
be
the-
set. Yeah, that's what we'll go on. We'll continue to build the project, but we will now have a good understanding of where the money to make up that 15% difference is going to come from, and then we'll plan accordingly. And you guys will set a public hearing when you consider this, if you consider this in the affirmative. And I would recommend you make that public hearing probably sometime in January. There's no rush on it. As soon as we do this, I feel like that's going to calm a lot of the waters for a while. Give Troy the time to work on keep designing the project, and let our assessor's office do what they do. And of course, by the clerk a couple months to recover from the election that she's going to need. But yeah, that's our plan. Just wanted to, on this project, we've been way ahead of schedule when it comes to our public information, and that's by design. The last time, and I made a joke about it before, but the last time, and I don't know what they wore back in the day, but some guy in a suit came before city council talking about a federally funded project for the south side. It didn't go very well. We have a lot of trust we need to earn back. This might get us 1% better on the trust score, but it's what we got to do. And hopefully by being so far in front of it, we can build more trust.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, just to provide some context, my question is for the city clerk. Has a petition been turned in from a majority of residents saying they're against this project?
Yes,
Okay.
against the assessment roll.
But the way it's
Associated.
written,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Yeah, okay.
That also speaks to why we're so far ahead. The community's anxious, I would say. If it isn't clear already, I support this plan. I think it is a worthwhile use of these funds. I think it's worthwhile for a lot of reasons. One, it breaks my heart that our forefathers did what they did. But the rational part of my brain looks at the economic numbers that John put up. And I sit there and look at it and think of how good our downtown is. And I think how good some of our economic nodes in the city are. And I think about what that could have been and how that could have continued to contribute to the city's bottom line for years and years and years. What John put up is numbers that but that in value, right? That was lost. It didn't speak to what it did to our taxes. It didn't speak to how far that's put us back as a city for our operations. It completely ignores that. And that's not to say there's anything wrong with the presentation, because what John's presentation did showed what it was like for the actual people living there. And I think that I'm never going to be one who says, woe is me, city. We will find a way. It's the people who we got to take care of who are most important.
So this is not the first time that street assessments will have been covered by the city of Jackson.
Oh, no. This
Okay.
is definitely not be the first time. Yeah. We don't need, I lived it, so I'll bring it up. There's only a mild amount of PTSD. Michigan Avenue, just done 2014, 2015. Troy and I were the lead guys on that project then. Dig downtown Jackson. That street didn't get assessed. Years before that Jackson Street got done, it got assessed. Just this year, we passed street assessments for water work, and some nights we didn't pass assessments. I think you guys are 7 people elected to do what you guys think is the best interest of the city, and every project has a different set of circumstances, and every project has its reasons why and why not. But for me, this one to do this is a major reason why, and I think we should do it.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
if I may, I don't have a lot of questions, but I do have some thoughts about this. I appreciate the cat's finally out of the bag and we're admitting that assessments have and always have been arbitrary. That's something that has really, upset me, and big reason why I'm on council at least 5 years ago. And we've done some things since then to give more people more of a voice. This goes, I guess, the reason I asked him why, if assessments are arbitrary, and we recognize that they're arbitrary, we are still charging businesses and people sometimes upwards of $100,000, even if we give them a break, to get to their street every 3 generations. I guess my question is, what's the difference between 3 generations and 6 generations? I would support not doing assessments at all on this project and never doing assessments again. Anything short of that, I will not support. I appreciate very much Mr. Willis's presentation, but I was thinking of the gentleman who was forced to sell his 2 properties for $14,000, right? After he took it to court and he was originally offered $7,500 and he was asked, "Aren't you happy?" And he said, "Hell no," right? We go to one of those 7 parcels and say, "Hey, you were going to be charged $117,000, but now you're only going to be charged $95,000. Aren't you happy?" Like, what are we doing here? We'll get to your street every 3 generations? So on some level, I do appreciate the fact that we're being honest about this, but let's be capital H honest about it and just stop doing assessments at all. And admittedly, the streets would fall apart quicker than they are now, but people wouldn't be charged $100,000 to get there, and it might wake them up to the realization that we don't have the money right now, and even with assessments or without them.
Council, any other questions, comments, concerns?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I guess mechanically, I don't see an agenda item with this language on it. So if we're doing a vote, are we just going to bring that up under new business and phrase it in the way that we phrase it? Or is this a heads up and it's going to be on like old business next meeting? I'm just trying to understand what we're trying to go for here.
I didn't want to be too presumptive to put an actual agenda item on. I think that you could do it right now. I'm not the parliamentarian, but I think someone could make a motion and say, we're going to do what's on the board. Matt or the parliamentarian could weigh in, but
Yeah, I think
kind of how I
that's,
set that up.
I'm pretty sure that's in order, but we defer to the professional.
Yeah, you certainly have the prerogative to take up a motion on any item that's currently on the agenda. This is obviously scheduled for the presentation, so if council felt it appropriate to make a motion based upon Mr. Willis and Mr. Green's presentation and the recommendation that's outlined, you're certainly, you have the ability to do so.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I would make a motion to allocate 100% of the proposed assessments so that businesses and property owners are not paying any assessments at all, and the city will pay all of the 15% match from our general fund.
Motion on the floor.
Support.
Motion has been moved and supported. Want to open the floor for discussion?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
well, I respect the council member from Ward 6's principled stance here. I'm not comfortable allocating funds that I don't know where they're coming from, so I'm open to that discussion, but I wouldn't be comfortable voting yes on that, sight unseen. Thank you.
Noted. Any
think that's a good
other
point.
discussion?
Are we liquid enough to do it?
Yes, we are.
Does that address your concern?
Minimally, yeah.
It's possible.
A lot of things are possible.
Yeah.
What, I guess,
Could I ask a question that might help?
by all means.
So
Mr. Mayor.
above for the 7 parcels that would still have a portion of assessment to be paid, can you give us I know we said we don't have exact numbers. Can you give a roundabout of what that delta is above that 22.5 that is originally recommended?
Ooh, Troy, do you
What-
remember offhand? I'm trying to pull up the spreadsheet.
Yeah, I would, you know, if the proposed, what's on the table, you know, raises about 985,000, but we need 1.2 million. It tells you, you know, that the delta in there is about 200,000, maybe 2.1 or 210,000, more or less.
I'm fine with it in principle, but again, without knowing how much is, I think the point, as I understand it, of this proposal from the city manager is to allay some concerns in the community about the assessment and set a public hearing for some point in the future where we're actually going to learn what the assessment roll amounts are somewhat officially, which is also, as I understand it, contingent on the actual cost of the project. And so if we're going to be committing ourselves to allocate the full cost of the project now without knowing how much the full cost of the project is going to be, am I understanding the process right, Mr. Manager, in terms of how
Yeah, generally, yeah. That's a little different. This is actually how we used to do things. We used to approve assessment rules before the project was bid or completed, so it was all based on engineers' assessments. So engineers' estimates. So individual property assessments could vary by the time the project was done, so this is kind of like that. If you chose to do my recommendation tonight and held a public hearing, you would still have another opportunity to say like, hey, you know what, we're going to kick in that extra 300 grand to make this 100% funded. It wouldn't box you into that or this or the other thing.
Okay, thank you.
I like what the city manager said. I think during the public hearing, if you want to allocate more to cover everything, I think that'll be for me, that'll be the best way to go.
Any other comments, council?
So I want to make sure I'm hearing correctly, because it does affect me. And I appreciate and respect everything that's been discussed. And when I say me, I mean my ward. So I would like, it would be great if we can kick in the other 200 that we need. But I'd like to have a little more information about the ones that would have to. And I don't know, we don't have to bring it forward tonight, but I think I want to know who those are. I shouldn't say think, I do. Honestly want to know who those individuals are. But the more we can give, if it's not going to create a problem, for us. And I think I heard it won't, but I don't know. I guess whatever we need to do tonight to get it started anyway. We got 97 or whatever that number was, all but 7 covered.
Do you, Mr. City Manager, do you have a list of those properties, and would it be appropriate for us to be able to just have a list of those properties that would be impacted outside of that 22.5?
Yeah, just let me sort this real quick.
So I think that's relevant, because I think the overall idea of this is to help the residents who live on the street. I'm okay with either way, especially if the city manager is saying that we can cover it with confidence. But I think it would be good information to know.
Okay, so if it's okay, so the gas station would be the 775 that I said. The laundry and C-store, their assessment after the proposed plan would be about 17,000. The Domino's strip, their assessment would be $31,000 estimated. These are all estimates. $31,000 after the discount. The AutoZone parcel, about $36,000. Kelly Fuels property located at 1800 South MLK, about $15,000. And then 2 more left on here. The Dollar General, that property, $97,000. And then where the big strip center is, where there's another dollar store in the Plasma Center, is that's the big one at about $100,000. So the Dollar General parcel, 97. And these, I mean, I didn't provide any hundreds or cents because none of that matters right now.
That's the plaza, correct?
Yeah.
No,
So
Plasma Center
the
is
Plasma
the-
Center Plaza, all those, yeah.
But then the
That whole
Dollar General
development.
across the street is the,
Mr. Mayor,
I just wanted to make
Yes.
sure it was that plaza you were talking about, there on the side, but.
I apologize for not having taken notes, but is there a nice clean divide between, like the couple of local businesses on there? Is there assessment, I'm wondering if there's a way to structure this where we help out the local businesses, but the big folks are. Okay,
Just by putting more money into it.
okay. Thank you.
Do we still have a $15,000 cap on residential properties? We do. Okay, so the 22.5 was intentional because it includes churches and commercial properties as well as residential properties then?
I would say it applied to Lansing Avenue lessons learned.
Council, what other questions, concerns? I see the wheels turning for everybody. Just want to be as patient as possible with this.
So this include churches and nonprofits?
Yes, sir. Every parcel. We don't. Yes, a parcel is a parcel for this project. But at the level of 22,500 per parcel, it took care of all residents and all churches.
Are we setting the precedents?
No. I think I went over that a bunch of times.
I think the precedent is we can do whatever we want. We've made it clear that it's arbitrary. We've tried to do rules in the past and we don't follow them. And then that's laid bare tonight.
I like what you said, honest with a capital H. I mean, part of this was to be like, we do things because we just do things.
Well, my last comment, I believe, is, in my mind, these businesses have stuck with the south side of town. You know what I'm saying? So going the full amount can make sense to me, but I'm one of those people that stay in my mind, and I may find something different or think of something different. But all of these businesses have hung in the south side neighborhood and taken the hit of probably lower traffic business. So they've went through the struggle. That's all I'm saying. These people have stayed in business and tried to maintain. So that 200,000, that if we have it, I think would be a nice little offset to that 42 million, was it, John, on that chart? $42 million, you know. And I know some of them haven't been there the whole time, okay, because I lived there. I saw my street right there where I grew up on the chart. So, and I know we were a part of the urban renewal process, but I was too young to really get into all of that. So, I'm just saying, the neighborhood and these businesses that are listed have tried to stay in there with the south side of town and make ends meet. So I know it's been tough for some.
So I would add to that also. I think, so my first thought was like, okay, if we can look out for the local businesses, that would be great. But as I really think about some of the investment that some of the not all of them, but some of the larger businesses that have moved in there, like particularly at the where Shop and Save used to be at, they had to make a hefty investment in that property under the very stringent city guidelines of adding green space, curb, gutter, all of the things that they had to do under the purchase, putting new windows in that building, all the things in the investment that they had to make under the guidelines of the city. And I think it would be a worthwhile investment for us to cover it, and I think it would be a fair thing to do. My first mind was like, okay, well, if we raise it a little bit more, that would cover at least the local businesses who have stuck it out over these years of really nothing being there and providing something in the community. But I think all of these businesses have done that. I think it would also hopefully encourage them to make further investments for the businesses who have not. That would hopefully impact their business directly in this moment. And I guess just a last question. So, Mr. City Manager, you're confident that if council did take this vote, that we have a place for those additional dollars to do the full 15% to come from?
Yes. I plan on that question being asked. So, yes.
Okay.
Elmer, you're not getting a raise.
Oh, no. This is bad timing for that, okay? This is bad timing.
we
If
did-
you need a raise, Elmer, you let us know, okay?
I did.
Now's your time to speak up.
We did think about this, and I have to give a lot of credit to Heather Ennis, our finance director. Tons of credit to Deb Cohn from the assessor's office, who worked hard on getting these preliminary numbers done, and then Troy White coming in and closing it all up with the project costs and how things would kind of look. So, yes, we as staff, we think about these things. So, we're good. We're good.
Any further questions?
No further questions. I just want to say that we've had a lot of conversations about assessments. And Mr. Mayor, just going back to a comment that you had made, how we as a council would like to get to that point where we can fund these assessments for our community, our constituents. And so I feel like we have to start somewhere. And I am pleased to know that we have the funds available to do this. And my hope is that in the future that we will make the same consideration for other streets that are looking to have renovations, reconstructions, infrastructure updates, that we sit just like we have today and that discomfort and ponder about the decisions that need to be made, not just for the moment, but long-term for our community.
If there is no other questions, before the clerk tallies and displays the vote, if everybody would just refresh your screen so we can make sure that it'll pop up. And then the clerk will tally and display the vote. And the item passes unanimous. That brings us down to item number 6, public hearing. Item A, looking for a motion to support to receive a public hearing presentation and take public hearing for a repaving project on Brown Street from Denton Road to High Street to outline the impacts to pedestrian and non-motorized routes during construction.
So moved.
It's been moved and supported. Any discussion? Seeing or hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, the same. And public hearing is now open. Troy. Sorry, Mr. City Engineer. Come on down.
Thank you for working me into the schedule and letting me make this presentation. It's going to be a short presentation. Basically, I'm here to talk about Brown Street repaving.
The down button. I did that so many times.
There we go. Brown Street. This is the portion of Brown Street through the Cascades, in front of the Cascades through Sparks Park, down there from Denton to High Street, and it will include the High Street intersection. This is a project we're looking at doing next year in 2025. Am I doing this right in the mic? Okay, in 2025. A slide I should have made, and I realize now that it's the presentation is a little deficient. I'm telling you what we're going to do, but I'm not telling you why we're doing this presentation and this public hearing. This project will be funded in large part with federal funds. And with those federal funds comes all the requirements to use them. One of the requirements is that we have a public hearing if our project is going to impact access to a park. Well, this goes right through the middle of the park. We're going to be doing some sidewalk ramps at the park. So therefore, we're impacting the park and access to it, and we have to have this public hearing. I suspect that rule was made for, I don't know, closing down 30 miles of road through Yellowstone Park or something. But in this case, it's just a small project, a couple sidewalk ramps, but we still have to jump through those hoops, and that's why I'm making this presentation right now. So we're going to talk about Brown Street. I'll keep it quick, and then that way everybody will understand how we will maintain access to the park during the construction period and how that the park access will be impacted. So we anticipate doing construction in the summer of 2025, and we're going to be scheduling that work around the events at Sparks Park. We know they have fireworks. We know they have various events. We'll work around that. We probably would look at starting work right after 4th of July and take about a month to get it done. And then, the disturbed grass areas, we'll have to let the grass grow, and that probably won't get going until the end of 2025. But it's going to be a relatively short project. What we're planning on doing first is we'll upgrade some sidewalk ramps where the trails cross the road. There's 2 crossings of Brown Street, and again, we're back to federal requirements for using federal funds. We got to make sure that those ramps conform to the requirements for the Americans with Disabilities Act. It is a requirement, but it's also the right thing to do. So make sure everybody can use those. We're going to then remove the surface of the pavement with a mill. Then we're going to repave it. We're going to put down new stripes, and we're going to bring up the signs to meet all the current requirements. Pretty quick project, an easy project. During construction, we're going to, let me read what I wrote here, huh? Access to the trails in the park will be maintained throughout the construction period. There's going to be no time when you can't get into parts of the park. Brown Street, in the construction zone between Denton and Morrell, that will be closed to vehicles. We're not going to have cars in there while we're working. Brown Street will remain open for local traffic between High and Morrell. We're going to have to close, basically we're going to have to close all of Brown Street from Morrell all the way to Denton. That portion there where there's residential houses, everybody will be able to get to their houses. It'll be open for that local traffic. They won't be able to cut through the park, but they're going to be able to get home at night when they need to. The little parking lots in the park, obviously we're going to have to let people into those, and there might be times when we're actually doing the paving. You're not going to be driving out while we're out there paving, but for the most part, we're going to keep it open for people to get to those parking lots. And then lastly, the traffic that normally goes through the park, it will be detoured around the construction zone. We're talking about using Kibbe to West Ave to Morrell and Spring Arbor Road. Yes, it's going to be a little inconvenient for motorists, but it's for a short period, and it has to be done. Here's what's most important is maintaining traffic for non-motorized users. When we say non-motorized users, we mean pedestrians, bicyclists, those type of folks. Access to trails and parks will be maintained throughout the construction period. There's 2 sets of ramps that cross Brown Street. We will do one ramp. We'll take it out of service. The other one will remain open so that people can get across the road when they need to. Once this one is fixed, we'll close this one. Well, this one's open. So at all times, people are going to be able to cross the street. Here's a graphic. I don't think it's a very good graphic in terms of busyness, but basically it shows that at all times, we'll do the ramps one at a time so that way one is always open while the other is closed. Like I said, it's a quick presentation, but I think what I've tried to do is outline what we're doing for the work and how we're going to maintain access to the park throughout the construction period. And by making this presentation, having the public hearing, we're meeting our requirements to use the federal funds to do this project. Other than that, I don't have anything more to present unless somebody has some questions for me.
Thank you, Troy. I think the rest of the questions probably could be answered from your seat. We got one public comment that I'll call up. Just want to start by reading the rules for speaking before City Council during a public hearing. Each speaker will state their name and address. Number 2, during public hearings, the City Council may enact a timeline on all speakers to ensure that all present get an equal chance to speak. Council members may answer questions during this time. Number 3, each speaker shall be polite and courteous to the council and the members of the public in attendance. While any speaker is free to express his or her opinion on any subject, no speaker may direct personal attacks at any member of the staff or council unrelated to the manner in which they perform their duties, use obscene language while addressing the City Council, or engage in disruptive or disorderly behavior during a council meeting. Number 3, should the mayor determine any of the listed items in number 3 occur, the mayor may declare the speaker out of order. Number 5, if a speaker is declared out of order by the mayor and refuses to cease and desist from disruptive or disorderly conduct, the mayor may order the person removed from the meeting. Nikki Thurston.
Good evening. My name is Nicholas Thurston. I live in Jackson, Michigan, 410 Van Buren Street, Ward 5. I want to speak during the public hearing for the proposed repaving project on Brown Street in Cascades. I support it. It sounds like it's going to do something that will improve access for people who have disabilities, which is, I think, a really important thing in Jackson. And it will help the city to be ADA compliant. But notice how his presentation didn't have any racially oriented context or any other identity-based sort of approach. He just talked about what they're going to do to the road and why they're going to do it. So I think that's a good way to do business. He explained the project. He showed the map and everything like that. So yeah, I think it's a good idea. Parks are important. And one of the most important things to note is that when it comes to things like ADA compliance, that any of you could become disabled at any point in time. You could get hurt at work. You could have genetic health issues, a freak accident. Anything could happen. You're just aging. Your eyes go bad. Your hearing goes bad. Knees give out. So it's important that we do things that increase mobility access in the city and try to keep future projects and policies ADA compliant as well. Thank you.
Peter Bormuth.
Peter Bournemouth, 142 West Pearl Street. I just had a question for Troy. Troy, are there going to be assessments on the properties along Brown Street between Morel and High? Are you assessing those individual projects for this street repaving?
The project doesn't extend over to Merlin High, so they're not going to be impacted.
You said Brown Street, on that stretch there of Brown Street. You said you're going to Morel and all the way across the park, right?
The project limits are from High Street to Denton.
Oh, okay.
It's confined to the park.
So there are no...
There's no one to assess because
there's
it's all
no
publicly
residential
owned property.
properties in this project?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Is this on?
John C. King.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm John King, 203 3rd Street here in the city. I also wondered, John Williston, with Jackson's history of being Jim Crow on steroids, I didn't hear anything on this project from John Willis, so I was wondering if he could mention something about that. A question that I would have for the city engineer, Troy White, would it be possible, like at some point in the future, if Denton Street was sort of ran to the other side of the Cascades Manor House, the bridge could maybe be moved or taken out or something, and then another, like High Street could kind of go around and connect to, that stretch of Kibbe, I guess it is, where the whole park, it would just be parked. There would be no vehicles going through. That would be a question, that I would have if that's a possibility. Maybe not soon, but, since you're the city engineer now, that seemed like something I thought was, maybe, that would be kind of nice in a way. Maybe it's not really, or certainly no time soon, something that's practical, but, maybe longer term if something like that. So I'll sit down and, if you have anything to answer that, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
I think the answer is there's nothing being considered like that at this time. There's been some significant investments on on the bridge over there and in some of the streets. So I think the traffic pattern we have is one we're going to have for quite a while, so we can realize the advantage of those investments that we've made.
Plus, that marshland might be a bit of an issue to cut across unless we built something up over it. But I see where your mind was at there.
Something was proposed going through the marsh decades ago, maybe 20 years or something like.
Okay, Council, did you guys have any comments, questions, concerns?
Just had a quick question. So it's my understanding that the county is trying to raise funds and it seems like continually raise funds to fix the Cascades Falls and the infrastructure underneath that. Would they have to break into the street if they were to do something ever? Is that something we've considered or worried about?
I think there's two parts of that. I've not heard of that, and I don't think any infrastructure work on the falls would impact the street.
Okay.
It would be minimally.
Yeah.
Any other comments? Okay, seeing or hearing none, we'll be looking for a motion and support to close this public hearing. It's been moved and supported. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, the same. Okay, that brings us down to item number 7, citizens' comment portion of the meeting. I will start, as we always do, by reading the rules for speaking before City Council during a citizens' comment portion of the meeting. Number 1, each speaker will state their name and address prior to addressing council. Number 2, each speaker is limited to up to 3 minutes during the citizens' comment portion of the meeting. Council members will not debate or answer questions at this time. Number 3, each speaker should be polite and courteous to the council and members of the public in attendance. While any speaker is free to express his or her opinion on any subject, no speaker may direct personal attacks at any member of the staff or council unrelated to the manner in which they perform their duties, use obscene language while addressing the city council, or engage in disruptive or disorderly behavior during a council meeting. Number 4, should any speaker cause a breach of the peace during their conduct, through their conduct, the mayor may declare the speaker out of order. Number 5, if a speaker is declared out of order by the mayor and refuses to cease and desist from disruptive or disorderly conduct, the mayor may order the person removed from the meeting. Number 6, each speaker may speak once under public comment and may not yield their time to others. Tabitha Williams.
My name is Tabitha Williams. I reside at 2206 Smalley Street in Summit Township. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council folks. I just want to introduce myself as one of the 10 candidates running for the HAPS school board seat in November. I am a lifelong resident of Jackson County. I, with my husband of 18 years, have 3 children that currently attend Jackson Public Schools. I'm currently employed as a labor liaison with the United Way. Prior to that, I worked in hotel management for over 25 years. So in that, I feel as if I bring a lot of different thoughts to what our school board is trying to accomplish right now. I know that there's a big emphasis on getting our parents back into being active and involved in what's going on with our kids, along with needing to hear the voices of our students and also taking in consideration the needs and resources of our staff. So I just wanted to come before this council this evening to introduce myself to you all, as well as the community members, and welcome you to catch me after the meeting for any conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Nicholas Thurston.
Hi, my name is Nicholas Thurston. I live in Jackson, Michigan, 410 Van Buren Street, Apartment B. Wanted to speak during the agenda item number 7, citizen comments, about the discriminatory effects of DEI That's one of the subjects I want to talk about. So already we see that the DEI program is creating more problems than it's solving. There shouldn't be a $1.2 million bill for a road that's not in bad shape. This is a problem that was created by the DEI program in the first place by renaming the road and then coming up with some wild plan to shrink the lanes from 3 lanes to 2, and then sending people that live in the black neighborhood on the Martin Luther King Jr. Street assessments for up to $15,000 each, and businesses massive assessments. That should never happen. And I get what's happening right now is they're trying to save the RAISE grant. They want to pay these guys whatever, and that's really what we should be looking at. Is if the unions were not billing us $10 million to do a strip of road in the first place, then it wouldn't cause people such a hardship when they say, where's my money? I'm going to fix this road that's perfectly fine because you live in the black neighborhood. But, you know, I think it's, hopefully it's more clear to people now what's happening. And I do know a lot about history. A lot of the stuff that DEI is promoting is really just stereotypes. They're promoting more stereotypes, more racial stereotypes. And there's some truth to what was said by John Willis, but a lot of it's distorted. They always stop talking about what happened after 1960, don't they? They never talk about what happened from 1950 until now, which is millions and millions and millions of dollars has been spent, really in the high billions or even possibly trillions, on special programs for people of color, special projects for women, financial aid packages for colleges, schools, child care, housing, health care, food assistance, businesses. It's ridiculous how much money's been spent since then. It was much more than $42 million that the city has spent on the south side since then. He never talks about that, does he? Fix 36 program also creates a double standard where businesses on the south side can open up. Only the businesses on the south side can open up without bringing the buildings up to code. That creates a double standard. And I guess they get 36 months to operate in a building that is not up to code. That is unacceptable and discriminatory. And the 100 Homes Project, the estimates for building the houses were that the population would be about 32,842 people now. It's actually in the 30,000 still. So they were short 2,100.
Thank you, Mr. Thurston.
And their estimates.
Thank you, Mr. Thurston. John C. King.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. John King, 203 3rd Street here in the city. I know, information came out about you that I've seen that I thought, boy, that's not good for a candidate, especially running against a great state representative like Kathy Schmaltz. So, but unfortunately, the city employees are doing their best to try to mislead people to vote for you. There's the reduction in crime in GVI. Now, I looked, Cheryl Ragland came on with the GVI program sort of late October of 2022. During your previous election, you bragged about crime going down. Well, this time around, February 29th at Shalana Hunt's ward meeting, the deputy police chief said crime, he mentioned like 7 or 8 violent crime categories. Each one went up some, at least some. When I FOIA'd that document, he said that he used, I was told, oh, it's not available, so I got sent something else. This actually sort of goes along with it and confirms that. So, so comparing the 2022, where GVI wasn't really being used, compared to the following year, crime sort of went up. Now, so it's a lie, Aaron Dimmick and, the newsletter and all that. It's just lies to try to get you elected to the state representative position. I mean, it's really disgusting. Maybe, I would assume illegal. I don't know what you're all talking about, having city employees campaign for you. But You know, there's the Fix 36 that, that's just come out so we can say you're pro-business and, for national crime statistics, New York, Chicago, and several of the largest Democrat-run cities have stopped giving the FBI their statistics. So now they're saying, oh, nationally, crime stats are down. That's not really the case. Another sleight of hand with statistics, like all the Haitians, Kamala Harris and Joe Biden are saying, oh, immigration, illegal immigration's way down. Well, part of it is that they've legalized with the yuan, many of them, but they also use July numbers when it's the hottest time of the year when people don't really come in. So it's just lies, statistics, figures.
Thank you, Mr. King.
The liars figure.
Thank you, Mr. King. Peter Bormu.
Peter Bournemouth, 142 West Pearl Street. Just real quick with the MLK, I think that your inclusion of churches in that is really a violation of the separation of church and state, because you're taking taxpayer dollars and you are giving them to churches. And those churches were not penalized during what John Willis spoke about back then. Those were residential homes and businesses, one church, but the church moved to another location. So, I don't think that's good. I just want to speak on that. The other thing I wanted to speak on was Make America Great Again. And normally people think of America's greatest period as from like about 1950 to 1960, after we came out of the Second World War. We're a manufacturing power, industrial power, and the only one that didn't have its industry destroyed. And at that time in our history, corporations paid 50% of all the federal tax revenue that was collected. Do you know what they pay today? 13%. So that difference of 33% of taxes that have been lost due to a decreased corporate tax rate is one of the reasons we run deficits. The other reason, of course, is the military budget, which is a way of transferring money from the general public who pay into our taxes to the military contractors that make all the money from that. Now, obviously, there's also the salaries for our men in service, and there's help for our veterans and all of that. So when I look at what Donald Trump did during his presidency, he reduced corporate taxes further from 35% to 21%. Now, Kamala Harris is saying, well, she will raise them. The corporations should pay their fair share. She would raise them to 28%. That's not even back where they were. Do you understand? Both parties serve the corporate interests in this country, one just more than others. Do you understand that? How you are played by both parties? Now, that doesn't mean you don't always vote for the lesser of two evils. But you need to remember that neither party is there for the middle class anymore. Both parties are owned by differing corporate interests. Thank you.
Christy Davis.
Good evening, Christy Davis, 612 4th Street. I was really excited to see 10E separating the police and fire, putting the police and fire chief into two separate positions. I was super excited about that. Thought that was great. I have been over to the Interfaith Shelter, and then, was it maybe 2 weeks ago, I went over to RIA, and I met with Selena Taylor, and I was super excited to finally get in there to be able to check it out. And so I've known a lot of the people that work over at Interfaith just because of my church and from going to school with a lot of them at Spring Arbor. And I've known a lot of volunteers there. And I've known Selena. She's the only person that I knew over at Residents in Action, which is why I was really relieved. It just made me super comfortable and relaxed to go over there. And she's so funny. They both have great knowledge in their boards. She told me all about their board, and I think that's awesome. I think both places provide really good care for people in homeless situations. And they provide places, obviously, to sleep, food. They help with jobs. I just really want to encourage people, no matter where people stand on wherever, however stuff got started with RIA, and no matter how people feel about things current or present with either place, I just think that we really need to focus on the problem that they're trying to solve and work through is the homeless crisis that we have in Jackson. And I just want to really encourage people. I know there are just lots of issues with everything. I just really want to encourage people to take the time to go down, see what either place wants you to do or will allow you to do. I know RIA, they're still kind of getting comfortable with getting some volunteers in there, which I completely understand. But one of the things, Tasha came to our ward meeting this last week, and that was great, and she talked about how people keep saying that they're not established. And I told her, I said, well, compared to Interfaith, who's been around for like 50 years, you are newly established. She said, you need to let us ask lots of questions. And she just smiled, and she's like, okay. And I mean, it was nice instead of, I don't know how to say it. It was just nice to be able to have a good conversation back and forth, just with everybody, to really see where they're going. And I just really encourage people in my really confusing rambling tonight to take the chance to go down and to go to RIA and see what they're doing and see how you can help. And the same thing with Interfaith. Both organizations are great, and I appreciate the help that everybody has given to support them. Sorry, I hope any of that made sense.
Lisa Bodell. Did I say that correctly, Lisa?
Yes.
Last name? Okay, thank you.
I am here on behalf of my boss, Raimundo Garcia, and VMG Construction. We are looking at purchasing about 20 lots here in Jackson to build single families and duplexes to either keep and rent for ourselves or to sell. We've been extremely excited about the work with the community development department. Shane and Chris and Brian, they've been amazing to work with. Whenever we have a question, they are very quick to get us an answer. And after building in Lansing for several years, they sometimes don't take our time crunch, so to speak, into consideration, and it's sometimes a week before we get an answer. So being able to get an answer from the Jackson community and the community development department, it's been so very refreshing. And we're very excited about building and helping you guys build back. And Ray is a minority business owner, and we are very excited about working with the community of Jackson. So that's all I have, I guess.
Miss Kathy Moore.
bugging me. My name is Kathy Moore, 1513 South Martin Luther King Jr. Drive. And I stand here today to thank, THANK, each and every one of you for Jonathan Green's proposal and John Willis. Beautiful, love it, love it. The comments were kind of worrisome. I was worried, but I hope the assessment stays the way it is as being fully funded. I would like to also publicly thank Jimmy Williams, because without him running around doing what he did to put a fire up under everyone, I think that kind of helped. Whether anyone wants to admit it or not, I believe that did help us on Martin Luther King to get the assessment taken care of. And while I'm standing here, I would like to say that I didn't really see too many commercials or anything about Mayor Mahoney running for office. And I haven't really heard anyone talking that much about it. But I will vote for Mayor Mahoney because Kathy is my friend, though. But I go for Mayor Mahoney. And I didn't know you rapped and did the things that I seen the commercials. I didn't know about that about you. So, you know, you were a little boy when I was growing up. So I didn't know that. And yeah, I do want everyone under the sound of my voice to vote for Mayor Mahoney. Vote for Mayor Mahoney. And let's talk about the Republicans and the Democrats. Everybody's telling lies. Everybody's doing what you do. So all I can say is pray. Pray and ask the Lord to help you, lead you, guide you, and vote for what the Lord is telling you. Don't vote for what this person's saying or that person's saying. Vote for what the Lord has given you inside of you. But he's already given me you, so that's why I'm voting for you. Thank you.
I promise I didn't pay her to say that. Last but definitely not least, I made her sit through all of our comments because she's used to it, and we miss her. Long-lost friend who wasn't so lost, just down the street from us, Mrs. Karen Manshot. Sorry, Manshot. I practiced saying that 50 times in my head and still screwed it up.
That's okay. And hey, I'm short, so I don't have to bend over, which is kind of nice. I've never stood up here for citizen comments before, so this is really weird. I am going to be another ray of sunshine like Kathy, and just say I'm so grateful for all of you up here. I miss working with most of you. A couple of you I haven't worked with before. But I just wanted to say how much I appreciate what you guys are doing for the city. It is really hard to not be up there and be able to vote on things. So I totally understand now. I mean, I did before I was up here, but you understand it completely in a different way when you're not able to actively participate in what's going on and how what you're doing is impacting your constituents. So again, happy to be here. I was not planning to be here today. This was a little bit of a last minute thing, but I knew that there was a council meeting and I had to show up and harass you a little bit, but not harass you because you don't deserve harassment. But good luck. You've got some great things I know you're going to be voting on tonight, but I've got to head out, and I'll see you all again. Hopefully it's not a year before I see you all again, because that's literally, it was just over a year from today was my last meeting. So good luck. I'll see you around. And I beat the time.
Definitely congratulations. You glowing. Congratulations. Mrs. Manshot. Mrs. Manshot. I'm going to get it right.
2 words, you combine them together.
Just say Bunnell.
That's what I did. I got to respect her husband.
Yeah, I know.
You gotta,
Manshot.
okay. If we need a recess, speak now, forever hold your peace. Is that a motion? Is there support? Okay, all in favor say aye. 10 minutes. All right. At this time, I'll be looking for a motion and support to come back from our recess.
So moved.
Support.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are back. If you would please make sure you refresh your screen before we get back to business, so that way we make sure that your voting apparatuses will come up correctly. And our next item on the agenda,
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar as presented.
thank you, because my screen is frozen. Motion's on the floor.
I'll support.
And it has been supported. Any discussion? Seeing or hearing none, clerk will tally and display the vote. Does that say trick or treating between 6 a.m. and
8.
6 a.m.?
6 p.m.
Oh, okay.
Stop it.
All day, baby, all day.
All day. We're going to have some sick children.
Wake up and go.
Brings us to item number 9, looking for a motion and support for the approval of the second reading, second and final adoption of the zoning ordinance text amendments to section 28-5 definitions, section 28-71 permitted and conditional uses, site and building design standards, section 28-100 and section 28-145 conditional uses.
I'll make the motion.
I'll support.
Been moved and supported. Any discussion? Seeing or hearing none, the clerk will tally and display the vote. And the motion passes. That brings us down to new business. Item A, I'm looking for a motion of support to approve the award of the signal shop maintenance contract to the J. Rank Electric Incorporated of Mount Pleasant, Michigan, for a term of 2 calendar years with 2 possible 2-year extensions, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute the appropriate documents in accordance with the purchasing agent.
So moved.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any discussion on the item?
I just have a quick question. Is this the company that handles the street signs, like the on the ones on the arms?
Yep.
Is that-
It's been fixed too.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
They worked this morning,
They
but
did.
okay. Okay, thank you.
Did we bid this out? Or is this like we've already been with them and it's an extension, or how does this?
We did not bid it out. It's a company we've been working with since we started. It's a continuation of what we've been doing in terms of staffing the signal shop. We've not been able to hire someone to do it in-house as a city employee. They worked with us for a while. We have a technician that they provide who has integrated himself into our staff. He basically works like an extension of our staff. As part of like emergency response teams and obviously in terms of maintaining all our signals, works on our lights, very familiar with our system. It just seems like the best way to ensure continuity, and it's working out financially for us in terms of using a firm like this. They provide us one guy all the time. We can call on it. I can't tell when I'm on or off.
But we're not paying somebody to drive down from Mount Pleasant every time.
No,
we need
no,
something.
he's actually he's a Jackson County guy.
Okay, thank you.
And works out well.
Any other discussion on the item? Bless you.
Bless you, my child. So, I guess, for me, that's an issue I always have, using, when you don't bid things out. I know, I guess that's something we're really trying to get out of, not bidding, just using the same contractors over and over and over. I know we have a relationship, but I still think this time we should be bidding things out instead of sticking with the same people. So I just have issues with that, and I'm voting no.
Any other comments?
What would the time frame associated with a bidding process, if, just to add to what Freddie just mentioned, what would be that time frame?
I would say a couple months. It can be done if that's the direction you guys want to go. I mean, we'd have to put together the proposal, we'd have to accept the proposals, review them, make a selection, make a recommendation to you. So we could bring it back to you if that's the route you want to go. But basically what it comes down to is hourly rates for a journeyman electrician. I really wouldn't expect, you know, these are union positions. The rates are pretty much set. When you have one guy who's a IBW employee, like those rates are set. You know, maybe it would change within a few bucks here and there. But really, what you're doing is you're paying the hourly rate for that position at a set rate. So we can do that. I don't expect a big change from what we bring into you, but if that's the way you want to go and it makes everyone feel more comfortable, it can be done. You know, I don't have that in front of me, but I do have I have the rates that we pay. Yeah, and that's basically the going rate for.
I'm just wondering if we pay out like 3 hours every year, like that's a lot of work for you to do. So, you know.
Oh no, we pay. I mean, we're pretty much staffed. He pretty much works as a piece, as part of our staff. He's here 40 hours a week, working for us. Sometimes if he's not in town or he's called to storm damage in another city, he might not be here. But for the most part, you can plan on a 40-hour full-time employee. This is just the way we staff it. We've tried to hire for in-house. We've been unsuccessful in attracting candidates.
Troy, I don't feel the need to bid this out. I just want to ask the question when we're doing contracts. I didn't mean to put you in a tough spot.
Well, that's all right. I'm here to answer questions.
Yeah.
How long have you been working, has this journeyman been working with the city?
I would say
Approximately.
6 years.
Seeing and hearing no other questions, the clerk will tally and display the vote. And the motion has failed. 3-3. Tied motion means the motion did not move forward. Does anybody want to make a recommendation or a motion?
I'll make a motion to pull together a request for a proposal and have some bids, and then have this as an agenda item at the next meeting,
Or as soon as possible.
or as soon as possible.
I'll support that.
Okay, motion with support on the floor. Any discussion on the motion?
Did you get second?
Yep. Troy, can you just talk us through the timeline that you would need so we can know when to expect, and if there is any impact between making that decision now and making that decision after a recommendation?
Well, I think what I'm hearing is in terms of direction is we need to go out, advertise this, get proposals from different electrical contractors, and bring that back to you guys, and that way you can feel more comfortable in terms of the cost, because it's been competitively bid. We're in October now. I would say we try to get that advertised in the next few weeks, get proposals in November, probably try to bring a recommendation for award in December. I guess worst case scenario, we have to do it in January. Maybe this company we've been working with, they've been cooperative. If we need to extend them over for a few weeks to get by, because I think one thing we got to remember is it's critical in terms of maintaining the signals. If there's an accident, if there's a storm or something, these are the guys who are fixing it. These are the guys who are fixing the lights. So I'm sure they would work with us if we needed a few more weeks to go out for these proposals. They're professional, and I'm sure they would understand. So I think I'm talking a lot, but to sum it up, I'll bring you guys another recommendation in January or in late December, early January.
Another thing that would be appropriate, given that we just tied in the absence of one of our members, would be for one of the individuals who voted no to either make a motion to reconsider, or I guess we could talk about it again at the next meeting that we have full attendance before making a final decision on this.
I'll support that. As somebody who voted no, I'll make a motion that we reconsider this at our next regularly scheduled meeting, and also move forward with a bid in the meantime, just to get ahead of the
So
game.
I think we have to carry the first motion first.
Okay, I see. Okay. Sorry to get it convoluted, but yeah, I see what you're saying. I agree.
Any other discussion on the motion that we have on the floor, which is to send a RFP out and have Troy bring back a recommendation as early as possible?
If, in a world where this motion passes and then next meeting, the original motion passes, what happens?
I think if the original motion is reconsidered and passes, then we would need a subsequent motion to nix that request for proposal. That sound about right?
I wonder if the maker of this motion would be willing to make it like revocable in the event that if we can make this motion more convoluted to avoid having to remember that we have to do two motions next time if it goes a certain way, that might be good. And that is the limit of how many dependent clauses I can fit into the sentence. And so I would throw it back to the original motion maker for an amendment if they so choose.
You made that complicated. You made that very complicated. I want to be certain that I understand what you were saying.
So what I'm saying is that the motion on the floor, as I understand it, Mr. Mayor, is to, it was by Mr. Forgrave to throw this out to bid, excuse me, I apologize, by Councilmember Hunt, to throw this out to bid and also to, well, actually, no. Never mind. I made it way more complicated. See, everybody's got to tell me to shut up earlier. I apologize. I apologize.
The motion, I support the motion that was made.
Okay. Any other discussion on the motion that's on the floor?
So the motion on the floor is what? Send it out for proposal? Yes. Okay. All right.
Okay. All minds clear. Clerk will tally and display the vote. Motion passes.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I think if I'm understanding this right, and I'm trying to track what Councilmember Wood's getting at, and I tend to agree, I would like to make a motion that we reconsider the original item 10A at our next regularly scheduled meeting.
Is there support?
I'll support the motion.
Any discussion?
So that is just saying that what we just voted down is gonna come back next month with the same thing that's happening now, instead of sending it out for rebid. So we do this, we've been doing this a lot in the past, we're trying to remove this stop from doing this. So we just want to bring it back.
We're basically saying we're going to
So we
have
have
this
a 7, so we have number 7.
Yeah, we want to make sure that we've got 7 here before we make a final decision. That's basically what this is.
And we've already voted to go out for bid regardless of what happens at the next meeting. For now, anyway.
So it'll go out for bid and it'll come back to us?
Mm-hmm.
see some confused looks. Anybody need clarification? Questions?
Did I hear both and? It's an agenda item at our next meeting. In the meantime,
If this reconsideration passes, it will come up on the next agenda. But there is also a motion that just passed for it to be bid out. So in my eyes, what would happen is if it does vote, if the vote passes, then I think that the next thing we would have to consider is a motion to take the RFP off the table.
Which
That's
is
if this
a
passes.
decision to be made at the next meeting and doesn't even have to be discussed if the motion fails again. So I think that is we worry about it next time.
And then, just for further clarification, Troy, you don't see that this would change very much, just it gives opportunity for like the fair bid process to take place.
I mean, we won't know until we put it out, but we can, but essentially what we're paying, we're not paying for a product. We're not paying for like, buy the items like we do for paving on an asphalt road. We're basically paying an hourly rate for a journeyman electrician at the standard union wage. Obviously, he's got his overhead in there, and it's a private company, so we're gonna make a little bit of a markup for profit. But in general, this is the going rate for this type of work. So I don't expect to see a big change. But that doesn't mean we can't do it to see if there's a big change.
Would we require that this position be union?
Well, it's not required, but in terms of.
In the bid, I mean.
In our bid, well, no, I don't think we do require it, but we also have our qualified contractor ordinance.
Right.
And it requires to show qualifications. It requires it to show that there's a training and apprenticeship programs. And when it comes to an electrician, there's really no way to meet those requirements. I would expect a union shop would show themselves to be most qualified in terms of meeting those requirements. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Any further discussion on the motion to reconsider this at our next scheduled meeting? Seeing or hearing none, clerk will tally and display the vote. Okay, item passes 4-2. And that brings us down to item B, looking for a motion support to adopt a resolution to enter into an agreement with the United States Environmental Protection Agency for construction to replace a portion of the North Branch transmission water main and authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute the appropriate documents.
So moved. Second?
It's been moved and supported. Any discussion? Seeing or hearing none, the clerk will tally and display the vote. And the item passes unanimous, brings us down to item C. Looking for a motion of support to adopt a resolution of support for the inclusion of listed streets in the 2026-2029 Transportation Improvement Plan and accept the requirement that the city pay the local match for these selected projects.
So move.
It's been moved. Is there support?
I'll support it, but nothing in Ward 4 on there.
It's been moved and supported. Any discussion? Seeing or hearing no other discussion on the item, the clerk will tally and display the vote. Item passes unanimously, and that brings us down to item D. Looking for a motion and support to adopt a resolution to enter into a contract with the Michigan Department of Transportation for traffic signal modernizations and safety enhancements, signing along the Lansing Ave corridor between Ganson Street and Monroe Street at the intersection of Jackson Street with Ganson Street, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute the appropriate documents.
I'll make that motion.
It's been moved and supported. This is in Fourth Ward.
Yes, it is. I know the answer to the question I'm about to ask, but I just want to say it out loud. Mr. City Manager, this project requires special assessments, yes or no?
No.
Thank you. Next question, this project will interrupt traffic for an extended period of time while the work is completed.
I'm aware of, no.
Thank you. Thank you to both of those negative answers. I feel positive about it. Thank you very much.
Nice. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Seeing or hearing none, the clerk will tally and display the vote. Item passes unanimous. That brings us down to item E. Looking for a motion and support for the first reading of ordinance number 2024 to separate the positions of Director of Police and Fire Services into two positions.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and supported. Any discussion on the item?
I have questions. What does this do to the budget? Are we, I don't know. I guess I don't understand when we split, is that going to create a difference in the budget?
The only budget consideration would be when, if approved, the job description for police chief and fire chief will be amended, and any duties that would now be assumed under the fire chief be scored out with our GovHR wage and compensation model, and then he'd be placed on the scale accordingly to his years of experience and where he should be in the pay band that you guys approved with that process. So that'd be the only budget consideration.
So the fire chief position?
Yep.
Okay. And there's room for that in the budget?
Yeah. Elmer thinks he has something to say.
Just so it's clear, it will not be adding any new positions. So we currently have a deputy fire chief, a deputy police chief. Under this, there would be a fire chief. That deputy fire chief at this time would no longer exist. So it wouldn't be creating a new position, an additional position to what we already have.
So there was a deputy fire chief?
Yes. Currently, Tim is the deputy fire
Okay.
chief.
So that's where the split happens, with him taking that role?
Well, possibly.
Oh, well.
But yeah. I just wanted to point out that it's not adding an additional position into the mix. It's changing titles.
Okay, there we go. Okay.
Any other discussion on the item? Seeing or hearing none, the clerk will tally and display the vote. Item passes unanimously. That brings us down to item F. Looking for a motion and support to approve lot purchase between VMG Construction LLC and the City of Jackson, and authorize the city manager and city attorney to make minor modifications as necessary.
So moved.
I'll support.
Moved and supported. Any discussion?
Yeah, I support because I have a question. My question is, I believe it's all east side. I mean, I just wondered, I thought this company had lots all over. the city?
This is a brand new
So this is
partner
a
for us.
brand new
Brand
one.
new, yeah.
Okay.
And the area is focused to be west of the hospital. It's one of our target rebuild areas.
Okay. So, but they are aware if they should want to do more.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
That
yeah.
we have lots.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And this is in addition to the 100 homes.
Okay.
So I imagine they showed like some of the models that they plan to build, or like the models that they're looking at for the single and the duplex.
Yeah, not to me, but the community development department, Shane especially, vetted this and worked with this developer. And yeah, it's a combination of single family and some duplexes. So I'm sure they showed them some example projects of what they've done in Lansing that took really a long time to get done and will be done a lot faster here in the business-friendly city of Jackson. Boom.
The example that I saw is more like the, and I don't know if they were all going to be that, I assumed that they were, but they were like the ranch-style homes. But I don't know if that meant everything was going to be ranch.
No, not everything is going to be ranch
Okay.
style. It's got to fit the neighborhood.
Okay.
And just to throw the question out there, is there any concern for this being an interruption to the 100 Homes program?
No concerns on our end. We have 43 approved in our 100 Homes program with the pipeline hundreds long. So this is just in addition to and extra.
So there is a company that wants to buy residential properties between downtown and the hospital to build new residences for people to live in, and they think that they can make money doing that.
Yes.
That's different than what this place was like even a few years ago. So I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Seeing or hearing no other questions, clerk will tally and display the vote. Item passes unanimously.
Bill, baby, Bill.
And yes, indeed. And that's what Big Gretch said. That brings us down to item number 11. Council member comments. Vice Mayor.
Thank you. So I just like just my comments are just talking about, we had some comments this evening, but I just like for everyone, when you get a chance, when you get home, you got disasters that happened a week ago with Hurricane Helene. And if you can, do what you can to donate or send money. And you have another hurricane bearing down on Florida coming the next couple of days. So, what we do with our business, so what we've done, we for every container sold, we donate $1. So we're just trying to do what we can to help out the community down there. So if you're out there, if you own a business, or if you just want to donate, just do what you can. And I just really think, as a city, we should think about that too. So I know we don't get hurricanes here. We very seldom get tornadoes, but it's just going to be years, decades before they even come close to any kind of normalcy. So think about it. Do what you can with your fellow neighbors, in a sense, and see what we can do to help those who are really in need and those who are always going to be in need in that area. Thank you.
Councilmember Robinson.
Not much. I'm just glad to see that we were able to do what I think is much needed. I mean, I as I said, I grew up on the south side of town, so I know what it was, and I know what it is now. So I'm happy to see that we are putting some monies back into the community in that manner. And then I just think I missed the point with the chief in the split, that the deputy was stepping in to that chief role for the fire department. So I'm glad to get that understanding. And then more homes in the community. I was mainly a negative vote over the years that it came before me when I was on council. There were a few that I saw, and I may have agreed to, but for the most part, I know that we took a big hit from 2012 before I became elected up until maybe 2-3 years ago. Then we haven't had as many homes come down, but I do look forward to hopefully getting some homes in the south side of town because we have quite a few vacancies in that area too. So other than that, I think that's it, Mr. Mayor.
All right, Councilman Forgray.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I guess just briefly, I'd like to touch on, I'm really happy that we voted and approved funding 100% of the assessments on MLK for that project. I think Councilmember Hunt alluded to it, and I don't want to put words in her mouth, but just to carry it across the finish line, that we need to consider this, what we did for other projects moving forward. I would take it a step further. As what I've said in the past, is we are currently charging homeowners upwards of $15,000 in assessments, and we're charging businesses hundreds of thousands of dollars sometimes in assessments to get to their street every 80 years. And I would suggest we stop doing that. We've always said in the past that that's how streets are done. I think we proved tonight it's not. I think we provided some context that it isn't. It never has been, and it doesn't have to be. And I think I'm excited about that fact. I'm a little angry that we've done it for so long, frankly. It makes me pretty mad. But I think moving forward, it's just a reminder that it doesn't have to be. And frankly, we'll get to fewer streets that way. We won't get them to them as quickly, but we're not getting them to it quickly now, So at the end of the day, we're not getting into streets and we're charging people tens of thousands of dollars, and it's the worst of both worlds. And we can stop it because we did tonight, and I suggest we continue doing it. Thanks.
Councilmember Hunt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll add to what Will just said. I am pleased to know that we were able to come to a consensus on the assessments for MLK tonight. I am excited and hopeful that we will continue to consider other projects moving forward as possible. And even when we're applying for those grants, that we're taking that into consideration on the front end of it before it even reaches this dais table. And then I want to thank John Willis for providing some history on the south side of Jackson. I grew up on the east side, and it was very informational and allowed me to have a better understanding of that area within my city. Jonathan, also good presentation, appreciate that information. Those facts help me make a better, more informed decision, so that's much appreciated when we have you come before us and give us additional information. And then always thanking everyone for always coming and taking time out of your evening to come to a meeting at 6:30 in the evening. Thank you for supporting us, and look forward to everyone going out to vote November 5th. Make sure you fill your vehicles with registered voters and make sure that they get to those precincts and vote.
Councilmember Wood.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, or folks can vote absentee or early in person, and I'm sure that our city clerk and our wonderful election division staff would be happy to facilitate that. So yeah, thank you to the city staff, obviously in the clerk's office for the election work, Mr. Willis for your presentation, Mr. White for your work today. I also want to thank everybody who was helpful in being responsive to my constituent, Mr. Davis' question about traffic safety on Argyle. That's something that a few weeks ago, we had a really bad crash. I won't say accident because I don't think it was. I think we had a bad crash on East Michigan, and somebody lost their life and several people were injured. There are a couple of GoFundMes that have been verified as being legit. One is called Support Veronica and Kyle in Their Time of Crisis. The other one is called Help Honor the Life of Seth Webb, WEBB, if you feel moved, please consider donating to that. We've got families in our community who are really hurting right now. I also think, and I've nagged a couple of you about this, and I'm going to continue to, that we have a serious problem in this community of reckless, aggressive, violent, lawless driving. And like, I'm as guilty as anybody else of going a couple over, but we are talking about people having full-on drag races down, not like, forget about major streets. Like, there's parts of Wisner that are 2 lanes that have these kinds of things happening. And everybody in this community knows it. And it is not a matter of if, it's a matter of when somebody else is going to be killed. We have to do something about it. The state legislature has prevented us from doing many things about it. And so I don't know what the solution is. I'm open to literally any ideas. If you're out there, if you're listening, send me an email. I'm happy to look at whatever, but we can't have this kind of behavior making it, forget about too dangerous for pedestrians, it's too dangerous for other drivers too. And for people, like, literally, like, what happens if somebody goes, loses control and plows into somebody's living room, right? Like, there's no reason to think that we're safe in our homes on some of these streets. So I think we have a lot of work to do as a community on that, and I don't know what the solution is, but I just wanted to make sure that we focus on it. And to end on a lighter note, thank you all, our hardest of hardcore fans, for sticking with it all the way to the end. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. So I'll start pretty much where you ended, Councilmember Wood, and just like personally want to share my condolences to UAW 475 member Seth, who lost his life, the other 3 individuals who were involved in that incident as well. And I agree. I think that we should have more conversation about some of the ideas that you expressed and like exploring like what that looks like. Because I think it's definitely important that we do something, and I agree. This is not the first time that the community has suffered a loss because of somebody driving recklessly, quite frankly. And I think that it's well overdue. I think a lot of citizens, I mean, I look at a lot of the comments on our social media from citizens about, like, this is not the first time this was a problem, and even talking to the members out there that night, saying this same exact truck has been, like, tearing up and down the street in front of us this entire week since we've been out here. For it to lead up to someone losing their life behind it, I think we are responsible to take some type of action to make sure that we do what we can to prevent it from happening in the future. I want to thank council for their vote on the full funding of the assessments for MLK because it's necessary. And I think that it was important for us to start with, like, refreshing our memory of that presentation that John Willis did, because that is the reason that we really embarked upon this journey in intentional reinvestment in this portion of the community. This week, I listened to a podcast that talked about like what's necessary to invest in communities that have been historically divested in. And a lot of the things that they mentioned in this podcast, I'll send it to everybody so that you guys can check it out in whatever spare time you might have. But it made me smile because a lot of the things that they talked about that are necessary to correct what has been done historically, the city of Jackson is actively working on and doing. So that really made me happy. I do want to send a special shout out to Jimmy Williams. Just a public acknowledgement that when citizens decide to stand up and speak up, that we do listen and action gets taken. I think this is something that was always in the works, but I think it's helpful when our citizens take the correct and proper actions and actually petition for council to make decisions the way the community wants to see them be made. So I appreciate the work that he put in, and the communication that he had on the issue, and us being able to clarify that the issue was not with the reconstruction of the street, but the issue was with the assessments. And I think we've seen that, as Will said, as everybody else has said, we've seen that time and time again, that the issue with people getting their streets repaired is not that they don't want the street repaired. It is that they don't want to have to pay for it, and most times it's because they literally cannot pay for it. So this is an occasion that I look forward to seeing multiple times. So I want to again thank John Willis, but I also want to thank Jonathan, because I think what makes it so pleasurable to work on city council is to also have a city manager who's willing to listen and think outside the box on particular projects that we have go forward. And every time that we come into a situation that requires us to have also the support and the back of not only our staff, but most importantly our city manager, because our city manager is also who lets our staff know, hey, we need to think outside the box on this and come up with something different, because that's what council is asking us to do. That does not always happen. I can tell you that from experience. That does not always happen. So I just want to acknowledge that and say thank you to you also. Man, I was trying to avoid this. I'll save that till last. But I want to say, no, I won't. I'm just gonna go for it now. I ain't gonna save it for last. So I wanna start by saying, like, I try my hardest during these times. I mean, my entire reelection, I mentioned nothing about running for reelection. Up to this point, I have mentioned nothing at all about the political endeavors that I have coming up. Right, and I think that I do that with grace. I do that because I'm humble, and that's truly the spirit of the person that I am. I do want to say, though, however, unfortunately, some of my endeavors have caused my opponent to not only attack me, but to attack the work that we collectively have done as a community. And I want to publicly, from the seat of the mayor, say I think it is completely inappropriate, completely unfair, and completely incorrect for a sitting representative who I have not seen one time in this room come with a solution for the problems that they are claiming. I think it's a slap in the face of our law enforcement, the accusations that are made, and it's a slap in the face to our entire council. Our council, including myself, are not out here fighting crime. We are doing it from the seat and from the perspective of what we have control over. But I do want to commend our chief and our law enforcement, local, county, Sheriff's Department, as well as our state police department, for the collaborative work that they have done and the results that they have driven in this community in driving down violent crime. Is all crime being solved? Absolutely not. But criminals don't stop committing crimes just because people want to see crimes stop being committed. So I just want to commend you personally on the work that you guys have done. This is not to my credit, but to your credit, the work that you have done to drive crime down and working towards that goal of 0 homicides in this community. We've seen a 68% reduction in violent crimes. We've seen a 53% reduction in homicides. And I think that is commendable work. And nobody, for under any circumstances, should be trying to use that against this community for a political ploy or political positioning for the lack of work, quite frankly, that they've contributed to the problem that we have. And I don't appreciate it one bit. Fix 36 is not a program to make me look better. It is a program that is absolutely critical and necessary for the future of building businesses in this community. And I, again, want to thank staff for working on this. I want to thank John Willis for advocating for it. I want to thank, again, Mr. City Manager for listening and actively doing something about it. And I want to thank our entire community development department for understanding that we have to be flexible and pivot when we see an issue that needs to be addressed. that will help make our community a better place. We are at a very critical point where, I mean, to be quite frank, like small business runs America. This community is no different. Small business runs this community. And if we are not providing fair and equal opportunities for people to do business and go into a business and not have to spend all of their money to be able to open a business, then we're blocking people from being able to achieve the American dream. That means that you got to have something to make something instead of being able to make nothing out of something. And that doesn't make any sense for our community. And I'm glad to see that this change was made and looking forward to seeing the businesses that are born from it. Will, I think that you are spot on in your concerns about assessments for the future. And if we could like go forward and not do any more assessments, I would be totally fine with it. But I think we do have to think about how we go about that. I think one of the most immediate conversations that we can pick up that we kind of ended last year with, that I think that we have not spent any additional time since then, was like we had like 4 bullet points that we talked about wanting to discuss independently from the assessor's recommendation that we shot down. One of those things was having further discussion about reducing the SEV cap for both residential and commercial. I think that would be a great place to start for us to continue that conversation because people are concerned. I had 2 very unique 2-hour on 2 different day conversations with 2 different streets that are right next door to each other. I went to Beverly Park Place, and every citizen that I spoke to, their major concern was the city of Jackson. Now, again, like we didn't create this baby, but the baby is born, so we got to take care of it. That's always my stance. This administration, this staff, is not responsible for these promises that were made, but the promise was made nonetheless. Beverly Park Place was promised reconstruction of their road. One of the citizens even went as far as, which she didn't want to talk to me at first, but I have a way. And we did talk, and then she opened up and said, look, this is my problem with the city. I'm in the old age. My husband has passed away. I'm the only one who's living here, take care of this house, and I'm literally embarrassed to invite people over here. And the city made this promise. We were all set and ready to pay for it, and then nothing. We had these community meetings. They gave us like renderings of what it would look like, and nothing. And I said, do you have those? And she said, absolutely, I do. She went in within about 1 minute, came right back out with those papers and produced them. I took pictures of them. I've shared them with the city manager and vice mayor. I think it warrants a conversation on what we can do to fulfill that promise. That street took me 2 hours, and if you know how few houses are on there, it is insane that every single person, that was their major concern. Completely happy with everything else that's going on in the city, but said, look, this was promised to me, and we never got it. I did tell each person, look, the numbers y'all got are probably going to be different. A street over the next day, an anomaly. Something that I call a home run, easy win for the city. We're talking about assessments and community not wanting to see assessments happen. One street over there on Bloomfield Boulevard, it is actually the complete opposite. They are circulating currently a petition to try to get the 51% vote from the citizens who live there to be assessed because they want their street fixed. That is an easy win for us to be able to follow through. I feel like it's an easy win. I don't know if I'm missing something, but the biggest challenge that we have had when like street repairs come up is people don't want to pay assessments. This particular street is petitioning to have it done with the understanding we know we're going to have to pay. We don't mind paying. The caveat being we feel like we've been neglected because we voted to have our street cut off from being a thoroughfare and being blocked off. That's just what I was told. Again, this is not a baby we created, but the baby is here. We got to take care of it. These people are petitioning and willing to pay their assessments. I think we should prioritize if they get it done, because some people may not, but there is a petition circulating, and most of the people I talked to are aware of it and sounded supportive of it. So I just wanted to put that out there as well. That I think that would be an easy win for in the name of getting streets prepared. That will conclude my comments for the evening, Mr. City Manager.
Thank you for your comments before. I really appreciate it. It's wonderful to work with the staff that's as committed as I am to just doing whatever we can to make a difference. So that's all I have tonight. Thank you.
Looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And we are adjourned.